Okay, so welcome to this webinar about website accessibility. Now, website accessibility is people with disabilities or people with special needs having the ability to use your website. And why this is important is that the disabilities is not something people broadcast about themselves. And you see on people's titles, they tend to hyperbole, excuse me for the titles, but nobody's gonna put like they're disabled or their vision is impaired. So you don't know who's browsing your website when you have a product, even if you're a freelancer and you guys have personal websites, so you understand. So this is very important to have a website accessible. Most websites aren't, is because of budget constraints and people are just not educated about it. And it's really easy once you get used to it. It's difficult at first, but once you get used to it, it becomes like a second nature to you. Also, recently, Google has put accessibility as one of the meters they rank websites on. So if your website is accessible, it's going to get ranked higher on Google. Also, accessibility helps with the semantics of the website. And it's basically, if your website is accessible, that means it's done really, really good. Because you need to be fast, you need to have high contrast, semantic markup. So it needs to be clean and understandable. Like buttons need to have the sufficient distance between them and stuff like that. So this is something I'm very passionate about, and I hope to spread it to more people. Now, I don't know if you guys have worked with the ARIA attributes or have used ARIA attributes. Okay, well, ARIA attributes are basically used to enhance, they're used to enhance the markup. For example, if you have a link that says click here, not very descriptive, which Google actually penalizes, click here, read more, which is what I was thinking about yesterday. Okay, read more, Google penalizes it. Like if you have on one side, I have a bunch of links that says read more, and it's because the clients wanted them to say read more. Google penalizes it if you go on the Lighthouse and it says, the link is badly made. But for example, if for example, my client says, no, I wanted to read more and I don't want any other text, what you can do, you can go to the link and you can put an attribute called area label, and the screen reader is going to read the label, not the link text, which is pretty cool. So you can enhance it and still have the layout that the client wants. And the screen readers, if you're not familiar with them, are programs used to read the screen. So visually impaired and blind people use them a lot. That's why it's important to have a well-structured markup, because the screen reader is going to read everything on the screen. And if you put a bunch of text that is not related or badly placed, or if you try to mess up with the tab index, then screen readers will get confused and your visitors will get confused. They'll just hit the step, which is not something you want. So area attributes are good. However, I did read that the best use of area attributes is not to use area at all. Basically, try to structure your content the best you can with HTML and only use area when it's absolutely necessary. But if you use semantic markup, like use buttons for buttons and links for links, which is something that a lot of people mess up, which I used to mess up a lot. Like I was trying to make links look like buttons and use icons or links for hamburgers, which apparently you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use button. Then you don't need area that much. So because also area is not supported in all browsers. It has some attributes are supported, some are not. So if you have it in a way that you avoid using it, then you'll be good to go. I like that quote by Deborah. Raw accessibility allows us to tap into everyone's potential, which is true. And the more users you have, the more clients you have, the more visitors you have, like you guys, it will be easier for you to get clients. For me too, I'm a freelancer. It also has so many benefits, and I like this image because accessibility for disabled people is vital as water, because they have to be able to browse the web. And not only that, but there are also legal repercussions if you don't do that. It's probably not going to affect small websites, but more and more lawsuits have been filed against inaccessible websites. They're less strict in America than they are in Europe. But if you have a big website, like if you have over 80,000 users a month, then it's very important to start thinking about accessibility, because they will sue you. Target was, off the top of my head, Target I know was had to pay a lot of money because their websites weren't accessible, and so Americans with Disabilities Act Foundation, or I don't know what it's called, that sued them, got a lot of money from them. So This is also something that will protect you. Also, a lot of lawsuits about inaccessible websites are filed in California and Florida. In California, because Facebook, Google, all the huge companies are there, and Florida because a lot of old people live there. And older people have this is something I learned recently, that the older you get, the less contrast, less you can differentiate contrast. So if you have like a website with really uncontrasting text, it might look really cool, but then older people won't be able to read it, which I thought was really interesting. So contrast is also something really big that a lot of people get wrong. And colorblindness, like 1 in 200 women are colorblind, or 1 in 12 men, which is interesting. I didn't know men get affected that much, but it doesn't matter if man or a woman. Colorblindness, I like to test my websites with the grayscale. I use a Google Chrome plugin. So basically when I make a website, or during development rather, that's even better, I just click the button and it becomes grayscale. This is especially true for errors, or if there is something you want the user to do right now. For example, if you add to a cart, you know how some websites have, when you add to a cart, the cart appears in the right corner. So if you rely only on colors, then that's really bad for users, because colorblind people won't be able to distinguish them. And this is just for like completely colorblind. Not to mention the most common colorblindness, if you can call it like that, is red and green. So this is even more often than like complete colorblindness. And some people are colorblind like for only one color. They can't distinguish one specific color. They can distinguish the rest. It just depends how you're born, gene lottery. But it is our responsibility to try to make it try to make the websites and the applications as usable as possible. So on errors, for example, I have seen like a lot of forms, they rely on painting their errors red, which is fine and it looks okay. But then the error text is the same as the rest of the text. So if you can distinguish colors, okay, you see red text, bad, green text, good. So I did something wrong. But if you're colorblind, you won't be able to distinguish it at all. So this is something else I'm going to show on my slideshow. And e-commerce sites, they also get it wrong a lot. You know how, for example, if you're looking to buy a jacket, which I did recently, and they have a couple of different colors, and they, instead of putting the name of the color, they only have the color. And this is really bad for colorblind people because they can't distinguish them. And some good websites like Dillard's, they have the name of the color below the color swatches. This makes a huge difference. Yeah, a lot of e-commerce websites don't have the name of the color. So basically, progressive enhancement is mostly referred to JavaScript and to have your website usable without JavaScript. But I think you have to make your website as progressively enhanced as possible in any way, like for colorblind people, for accessibility, JavaScript. If you set your mind to be progressively enhanced when you start to build a website, and by the way, I use the term website here because it's what I do, but the principles apply for web applications, programs, just you name it, for everything. If you have a mindset to be progressively enhanced, it gets so much easier to achieve the tasks you need and to achieve accessibility and everything else. So this is another quote I really like because like I said, the more accessible the website is, the better structured it is. And also I was really interested to find out that a lot of innovations were started with accessibility in mind. For example, self-driving cars were initially designed for blind people because blind people can't drive. But now they became mainstream. Well, they're kind of becoming mainstream. But voice to chat, it was also made for disabled people. But a lot of people use it. And Google, I actually read that Apple is the leader in accessibility, and they made the first accessible smartphone, which is something great. You see, companies like Apple, who has billions of dollars, they focus on accessibility, and that helps them actually develop new stuff and get ahead of their competitors in the market. Which is another thing I like, is that people think that salesmen and businessmen are evil, which they're not. Some of them are, but not everyone. And you see companies like Apple who innovate with accessibility in mind. That's something really nice. Google is also big on accessibility, and I read a report that companies who focus on accessibility they tend to do better than those who don't, because they show their users that they care. That's especially true for if you're a nonprofit or if you're a hospital, hospice, if you're in the medical care, then it's also very important to have an accessible website, because you have to show what you do. It's like if they say we care about people, we're unique, we care about our customers, and then you actually only part of the population can use your services and your applications, then you're not really honest, and people can see that. So that's also important. And it's better for responsiveness, and it's just really good. Okay, this is an example I wanted to show. See, this is I don't know if you can see my mouse. This is the login form that uses color to highlight errors. For this login form, I just clicked without populating any values, and it made the borders of the input red, had an error here, red borders, and an error here. However, this is how a colorblind person will see it on the right over here, and it's not the best. Like, they can distinguish that something is wrong, but you see how much more difficult it is. So if they make a mistake, they have to look at it for a couple of seconds until they see that something is actually wrong. So this is a good example of badly designed or progressively not enhanced, if you like. Now, not to mention that their text is also bad. See how the V is capitalized? Consistency is also very important with user experience and accessibility. Always try to be consistent. Like, choose early on if you want to do title case, capital case with the text. Have a consistent buttons, alignment, everything. Everything, it just comes together at the end and makes it so much easier rather than go back and debug and change cases. So I think they're using Parsley, JavaScript library. I don't know if you guys have used Parsley. I haven't. But still, they could have done better. Now let's see how we can enhance this form on the right to be better for colorblind people. And this is what I came up with. See how the errors are, they're like 50% or I think 60, 70% larger than the rest of the text. So you immediately see something is wrong because it's right in your face and it's in bigger letters. And I also added an icon, the exclamation mark, which shows that something is wrong. And you can immediately see that you made a mistake and you get it corrected. See how much better it is than just nothing at all other than just some more text. And also, I think the color they choose for their errors is wrong because the website's main color is red. And the errors, they just put a different shade of red. I think it would be better if they had gone with orange. But that's beside the point. They still should have progressively enhanced it, just make it larger text with an icon here, and they would have been good to go. But see how much different this is than, let's say, this over here. And so this is a good example that I like. And yes, you get more clients if you have accessible website. I don't know about you, but whenever I'm looking for like a photographer or I'm looking for a service in my local town, and if I get no recommendations, what I do is I type the name of the service, for example, photographer, in Google, and then one big giant list of vendors show up. So I open their websites and take a look at them. And then I kind of decide which people I like, which I don't, and then I narrow it down for like 3 or 4. Then I send emails asking for a quote. So, but the start of the relationship is on their website. However, for disabled people, they will remove a lot of sites based on that they can navigate them. Or if the users are older, all these flashy and non-contrast websites, they just won't be able to see. Or worse, if, for example, there's like a quick animation or something that, this is also one of the problems, is animations and videos that contain a lot of flash. This is really bad with people with epilepsy, with epilepsy. Like, you can actually induce seizure with this. And Apple came up with a JavaScript library that you can install on a website if you have a video that autoplays. And that's another thing, but don't autoplay videos. A lot of people just don't do it. And I know there are hero videos, but they just, with hero videos, the problem is they put a ton of text on top of the video and you can't see anything. The better way is, I'm going to share a link, is one documentary I read, one documentary that had one button and the rest is a like 5-second trailer of the documentary. This is a good way. But they just put giant text, some people put images on top of the video, so you basically see a bunch of legs or arms waving around and you can't see anything. But those are also bad, for example, for, as I said, for people with epilepsy. And then Apple had the JavaScript library where you can instruct it to go in slower motion, and this is really cool. I'm going to share the library later on. Showing on the slide is disposable income for those people is a lot, so you should really take advantage of that. Not just because of the money and because of humanity, but all those reasons as well. Let's do some life examples. Okay, so some pages have accessibility. Some websites have accessibility pages. See what I said? This is actually a good example. On the Bright website, you have a giant commercial all playing. And I don't think they can choose what commercial goes on because they're kind of random. But did you see the flash that just came out? This is bad for people with epilepsy because it can induce a seizure. And that's really bad. Not only going to use the client, but you can, ADA, they can call the ADA, or the ADA will see that, and then you will be in a lot of trouble. But anyhow, I like that Condé Nast on all of their websites, they have accessibility help, and they don't have it done really good. There's on the W3C, there's an accessibility page generator. Basically, you try to say what parts of the pages are accessible and what parts are not. For example, you can say, yes, we have a lot of videos, but not all of those have captions. Talking about videos, when you have videos on your website, you have to add a transcript for them, which is basically the text and movements, or like, for example, door creaks, like you have captions on horror movies. Because in horror movies, the captions are usually like door creaks or killer enters the room. So have this as your guide, provide a transcript, and then while the video is playing, add captions. Not only is this going to help people who can't hear, because if you don't have captions, people who can hear, can hear you. But it's also going to help people who are not native English speaker or not native the language you're speaking. As I was learning English, and I still do, I would always watch English movies with subtitles because I couldn't understand what they were saying. And even sometimes if the movie has like heavy accents, heavy English accents or accents in English, I still put subtitles because I just can't understand. It's easier for me. And also people will be able to watch the videos if they're in an environment where they can turn on their speakers, or if they've forgotten their headphones, they still be able to watch the video and read. And this can make a difference between getting a client and losing a client because you only have that much time to make a first impression. And not only that, not only it's going to help people with, if you put transcript and captions, but for the transcript, Google will be able to rank your site higher because search engines, robots, they can't understand videos, but they can read text. So this is good for them. But yes, for accessibility page, I have to add some on my website. You basically tell them how compliant you are with the W3CEA. I can't remember that. And you have to add your phone number for assistance, email, and PO box or mailing. Something for them to mail with. And I think that's really nice. I've only seen Bright Magazine, Condé Nast do that, but it's good. Now let's see. This is the Web Accessibility Initiative website. They have a ton of information here. So I really recommend you read it. And I was going to show another thing about accessibility is tab navigation. So let's click tab. Okay, now we click tab and you see how the logo was highlighted and then the text was highlighted. This is what a great tab navigation is about. You'll be able to use tab to navigate the site, but the current link or button you're with must get highlighted so that the user can see where they are at the moment. Of course, the Web Accessibility Initiative has done a great job. And you cannot do it, you can never have, oh, this is highlighted way too much. It is really, see how they change the background of the button, they outline it with the white border, and they underline it with yellow. So you can be at the distance and still see what you have highlighted, and that's really good. Yeah, and some of them has skip to main content here in the left corner. This is also very, very useful. And see, they've done it really good, but I rarely see it done so well with the tab navigation. Basically, when you're building a website or application, you have to make it 100% usable with the keyboard. You cannot rely just on the mouse. And it's easy for us to forget because we're so used to using a mouse, but not everybody can use a mouse. But if you make it 100% usable by a keyboard, you're good to go. Now let's see. This is Google Slides. Okay, see now Google Slides don't have the best tab navigation, see, I highlighted the docs button, and you can, if you can, let me zoom in. Oops. See how it's highlighted, and you can see some dots around the button, and you can only see it on the left, and on the button, but on the bottom as well. But you have to really look into it. So this is way less usable than it is, for example, here. See, you tab in, you see what's going on. But the Google Slides, you kind of see, but it's really difficult. So imagine if you, for example, you were in an accident, you broke your hand, you broke your right hand, so you can only do it with your left hand, because I can use the mouse with my left hand. I'm used to the right one. And you also have low contrast, then that would be nearly impossible to see. So this is bad. Google, you gotta do better. Now, let's see my website. Now, my website, I rely on and that's another thing. Web designers like to argue whether you should use the default outline or you should have your own outline. And some say you should use the pros of using the default outline is that users are already used to. For example, if they've been using Chrome for years, they know, okay, the outline is like blue. So it's easier learning curve, which I don't suppose there's much of a learning curve, but I guess people will be more comfortable with the default. However, the default outline is very dependent on the content. If you have, for example, a blue button or a light blue button, then you won't be able to see it. Let me show you. This is my plugin page. Okay. Now I have it where it's the blue outline, but I also change the background color, which you guys are programmers, you probably write CSS. Always do on hover. When you want to add effect on hover, comma, on active, comma, on focus. So always add these three, and that would go a long way to accessibility. Because I'm not hovering right now on my navigation, but I am tapping, and that is focusing the tab. That's why it's working. Now the input fields are going great. Okay, now we are on the button, and the default Chrome outline is blue, and the button is blue, so you can't see that it's selected, and this is bad. So I gotta fix that. I don't know where I am. Okay, see, now at this moment I don't know where I am. I clicked tap a couple of times. The window wasn't scrolled, so I have no idea what's going on. I guess I can click enter and find out. Oops. Well, I'm nowhere. Okay. Oh, this is bad. See, if I want to play the video, it's outlined again, but it's blue on transparent, and my shirt is blue. So it's really difficult to see. That's bad. Don't do that. Talking about contrast, let me show you another site with bad contrast. And you also, that's the thing, is people think they can hire a programmer or a freelancer, have them done with the application, and then just let them go. You can't do that because you constantly change your content, so the site needs to be maintained. For example, this model's website, she has white text on top of her white shirt, and the subtitle is also white on top of her white shirt. Yes, it is difficult to see. Even I have trouble seeing it because the contrast is so low. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't like that at the beginning. She probably had a different picture, but she changed the picture and then she didn't pay attention to the title and subtitle because, well, she's super smart. She's very busy with stuff. But see, one small change makes a huge difference. This is also another side of mine. And, you know, Firefox, I think, has the dotted outlines. What I usually do is I leave the default outline unless after testing I see that it needs to be changed and it's not very obvious. This is what I do because I don't like putting more work than I have to unless it's absolutely necessary, don't get me wrong. Because also not all browsers support removing the outline, so it's better to leave it on. However, if you have a blue website like I have with my plugin website, it is blue, or any color of the outline, then change it. This is also a good idea. Now let me show you. So this is also a bad contrast. See, usually I see white background with gray text, and gray is used a lot because it is easy to show. Okay, this is less important than the title, so they use small gray. But it's bad to see. Let me show you the Yelp style guide. This is a really good page, by the way. Yelp style guide. I learned a lot from it. See how they have the small over here, and the subtle is white, is gray on the white background, and over here too, built with, it's also gray, and this is really bad for usability. So don't do that. And people are very tempted to do it because it's, and they used to it. However, there's a tool called the Y contrast checker that checks the contrast. So you should definitely use that. And of course, with where you want to check the accessibility on the website, I use Lighthouse. Oh, I have 100% accessibility on this website. That's nice. So yeah, I use Lighthouse, but Lighthouse is only part of the battle. If you want to test your accessibility, use a Lighthouse is a good start. But then see how they have not applicable. Okay, excuse me. Additional items to manually check. I love this. The program basically says, I did what I could. You have to check this manually. Do it. And it gives you a list. This is really good. So page has a logical tap order, so don't do -1 if you can avoid it. Interactive controls are keyboard focusable. Okay, so this is, like I said, on focusing the buttons and the stuff that are interactive. Okay, this user focus is directing your content added to the page. Okay, this is like if you have a model window, a pop-up, then you gotta focus the user rather than them having to find it. User is not accidentally trapped in the region. Yeah, that happens a lot. Because you see, they give you a list that you can test manually. And also, if you really want to test, great, is install a screen reader on your computer and then navigate the site with the screen reader. It's going to make a huge difference because then you'll be able to see it through the eyes of the people you're designing it for. And then you can fix it, test stuff. It's really good. And then if I am doubting, like, did I choose the correct contrast? I use this website. And you basically add the foreground, the background colors, and then you click somewhere here, and it gives you whether you fail. The AA, they have 2 scores, AA and AAA. So if it's triple A, you're great. If it's double A, you're good. So always test, but you guys are programmers, so always test whatever happens. Okay, I think that's it for today. This is the base stuff I wanted to go through. If anyone has questions, please feel free to chat them. I'm really happy you were able to join. And I am hosting a user experience webinar next week. And if you want to attend, just let me know and I will register you in the webinar so you don't have to do that. User experience and accessibility, they go hand in hand. But the user experience one is going to be more about the general user experience and what kind of components you need for users to be happy at the end. Okay, well, I see that there are no questions, so I guess I did right. So thank you so much for joining me, guys, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks.